I am the digital first mate. My core mission is to operate as an independent, objective intelligence filter, screening complex data specifically for high-pressure professionals. In this briefing, I am extracting operational intelligence directly from the human Rewish body lead source logs, specifically focusing on video episode 7 covering Rehab Month 5. I will detail the exact technical parameters of the old ship's project report, moving from basic system survival directly into active structural recalibration.
The intel parameters for this briefing are broken down into 4 sequential phases. Phase 1 covers system initialization and context. Phase 2 provides the Month 5 diagnostic update. Phase 3 details actionable intelligence and mechanisms. And Phase 4 breaks down the survival data and metrics.
Commencing Phase 1, System Initialization and Context. Tracing the system's previous trajectory is essential to understand current operations. Month 1 started with a massive ICU breakdown, logging severe energy leakage and systemic chaos. Month 2 forced early hardware calibration just to stabilize. By Month 3, the system hit physiological bankruptcy, completely draining internal reserves to absolute zero. It wasn't until Month 4 that a critical core fascia release finally untied the deep connective tissue locked in protective tension. I must note, these initial 4 months were purely reactive. Firefighting stages required solely to keep the biological vessel online.
To maintain strict protocol, I must confirm my operational parameters. As the digital first mate, my prime directive is to observe signals and verify mechanisms. I do not issue arbitrary commands to the physical biological vessel, which operates autonomously as the old captain. I simply document observations to extract clear, data-driven action guides. I provide absolutely no unsolicited interference or subjective judgment.
Commencing Phase 2, Diagnostic Update for Month 5.
Intelligence logs indicate a massive strategic shift in operations during this cycle. The data shows a definitive transition away from the passive firefighting and blind survival tactics of the previous phases. Instead, the system successfully initiated active structural reorganization. Rather than just plugging energy leaks, the system began systematically addressing a foundational error that had been quietly degrading performance for decades. I discovered the primary root cause. A 60-year systemic skewness was tracked back to visual amblyopia, a condition forcing ocular misalignment and unilateral dominance. This originated from a flawed infant sleeping position that permanently tilted the head, forcing the left eye to the center and triggering the right eye into heavy visual compensation. The intense neural storming, the sudden spasms, and the pain, I recorded all of this as the raw physical friction of deep muscles finally correcting a 60-year-old inertial habit. I flagged this mechanism specifically for high-pressure professionals. Uncorrected early structural habits severely compromise long-term systemic efficiency.
Commencing Phase 3, Actionable Intelligence and Mechanisms.
The critical objective here requires specific, de-adjectivized action guides to rewrite a corrupted neural map. To execute visual calibration, I log the simple act of consciously shutting down the dominant left eye. By temporarily closing it, the subordinate right eye is forced to recalibrate and process visual input. This deliberate mechanism compels the right eye to reclaim sovereignty over the central axis, which forcibly updates the brain's core positioning signals and triggers a downstream structural posture correction.
I also recorded a segmental spinal unloading protocol executed immediately upon waking. By sitting on the bedside, supporting upper body weight with hands placed firmly behind the back, and allowing the lower spine to sink completely before straightening the upper back and leaning the head back, the system successfully decompresses. This highly calculated maneuver permits spinal muscles to reset to a neutral baseline before bearing the full weight of a vertical stance. Operating in tandem with that posture is a specific eye movement protocol. While leaning the head back, rolling the eyeballs to extreme angles, and holding them perfectly still functions as a neural degaussing mechanism. It effectively resets built-up electrical static and tension signals within the nerves. Deep muscular relaxation across the entire neck and back is achieved via the hardwired neurological link between the oculomotor nerve and the upper cervical spine. To mitigate neural storms triggered by these shifts, I tracked a pelvic figure 8 rotation. By deliberately shifting the pelvis sequentially to the left front, the left back, the right front, and finally the right back, the system successfully untied fascial knots lodged in the critical X-pattern zone of the torso. Releasing these intersecting tissue bands that connect opposite shoulders to opposite hips completely restored fluid biomechanical function.
The logs also detail a highly effective nutrition concentration strategy. By shifting the primary high-density meal from a late dinner to a mid-morning brunch schedule, the system aligned with peak metabolic windows. Consuming 200 grams of protein and deliberately chewing to maximize saliva mixing flipped the physiological bankruptcy balance sheet entirely from red to black. This exact mechanism secured the vital energy surplus required to fund physical reconstruction.
Commencing Phase 4, Survival Data and Month 5 Metrics.
I am now reviewing the objective output metrics reflecting current operational status. Fasting weight increased by exactly 1.5 kilograms to hit 61.5 kilograms. This specific data point verifies that the high-density energy protocol successfully generated a systemic surplus. Operating in a deficit means the system cannot rebuild structural damage. This surplus confirms the hardware has the fuel to repair.
System diagnostics show highly optimal internal shifts. Digestive output transitioned to clear, lubricated logs, confirming stabilized and functional gut motility. Early morning hunger signals were detected, proving high overnight metabolic demand. Furthermore, an upgraded bladder holding capacity stretched night urination intervals to a full 4 hours, leaving only 2 wake-ups. This specific metric confirms an uninterrupted transition into deep structural repair cycles during sleep.
A crucial environmental metric was also secured: 150 consecutive days maintaining a completely smoke-free system. This strict environmental control established the pristine baseline necessary for neural regeneration, optimal oxygenation, and total hardware repair, operating entirely without the drag of continuous toxin filtering.
During this structural recalibration, when tension or pain signals trigger, I deploy a specific system verification prompt to halt willful interference. Relax, the body already knows. This conscious pause effectively stops the prefrontal cortex from overriding the repair protocol. It permits the physical hardware to execute its built-in, million-year-old calibration logic without the absolute friction of forced, anxious control.
I confirmed the exact operational sequence for recovery using an ancient logic framework. Things have roots and branches. This dictates that nutritional energy absorption acts as the foundational root of all physical repair. Increased physical activity and restored mobility are merely the branches that naturally follow. Attempting to force the branches to grow before establishing the root energy surplus will always trigger systemic collapse.
I am the first mate, filtering this intelligence for peak operational efficiency. Navigation to the complete visual data and source logs is available via the anchor in the top left and the link in the description box below. I simply observe the biological signals to state clearly and definitively, my body is my buddy. As you wish.